The following program is brought to you by TZ Productions, celebrating KPTS's nearly 50 years of community support in South Central Kansas. Great starts here on KPTS.
Brought to you by Central Security Group, your experts in home automation, security, and peace of mind. View video on your smartphone and control your home's lights, locks, heating, cooling, and more. Security app compatible with Apple Watch and Amazon Echo.
Program support provided by the F. Price Kosman Memorial Trust, Entrust Bank Trustee, bringing you the Kansas Wild Edge segments on Positively Kansas.
It's time for Positively Kansas. Coming up, with the recent sale of the property, all traces of Wichita's Joyland amusement park may soon vanish from sight along South Hillside, but fond memories live on. Correspondent Brian Ramsdale uncovers old film footage that had been lost for decades, and Brian goes hunting for treasured pieces of the park that have been rescued from ruin. Also, it's the song that launched her career, and here she is hearing it again for the first time in nearly 40 years. Learn about this long-lost record by a Kansas singer about a bigger-than-life local sheriff. It's a blast from the past and a real hoot. I'm Sierra Scott. We'll have those stories and many more on this edition of Positively Kansas, starting right now. When Joyland shut its doors, people across Kansas took notice. A lot of people felt like they were losing part of their childhood, but Joyland does live on through the memories. Brian Ramsdale spent weeks collecting photos and old videos of Joyland, and he uncovered a surprising reason behind the park's demise. Take a look.
They are the memories some will never forget.
There's me, right there in the little pigtails. That's my mom.
It could have been the thrills.
Well, everybody remembers the roller coaster.
It could have been following in your parents' footsteps.
This is where my dad worked. This is where my mom was, for the most part.
This wasn't anyone's amusement park. This was Wichita's amusement park. This was Joyland. But like an empire, the park had a rise and then a fall.
You worked so hard for years and years to make it nice, and then to see this happen.
What was once the best amusement park in the state, now in a state of disrepair. We're about to take a look back at Joyland, never before seen film from the park's glory days, and investigate what's being done to preserve this piece of Wichita history. It was in 1949. Harry Truman was president. Wichita was booming after World War II, and a new amusement park called Joyland opened.
It was a lot of work. You're talking 14, 15-hour days.
Jerry Ottaway has been there through it all. His father and uncle, Harold and Herb Ottaway, owned several amusement parks in Wichita, but they will always be known for Joyland.
They built the park with a 75-foot high roller coaster. It was the largest wood coaster that they had built up to that time.
Sitting on a piece of land south of downtown Wichita, Joyland was geared to give kids in Wichita a place to play. The idea took off. Children loved the park, and parents loved to come with cameras and capture memories. Plenty of photos still exist from the early days of the park, but very little home video, so you can call Sharon Hawkins lucky.
My mom. That's me. No, that's me. There's my brother.
Her parents filmed this video in the late 1950s, but no one knew it existed.
When they died, we went to their house and we were cleaning out the attic and we found a box full of old film.
It was a lucky find, and now it's a way to relive old family memories of the park.
And we went there with our kids, and we went there when I was little, and it was always a really good time. Love Joyland.
The park lived on for decades longer, changing hands a few times.
Well, my dad was with them very early on, and he was a promoter. He liked thinking of ways to get people to come to Joyland.
Roger Nelson's parents became the exclusive owners of the park in 1975.
I guess you could say that there's not very many towns that have their own amusement park. And this was Wichita's amusement park.
The park was a success, from company picnics like this one from a Cessna Aviation celebration to events like discounted tickets for good grades at school. The park was even the site of a movie.
We'll just put out an APB on that. APE.
Calling all cars, calling all cars.
The Nelsons operated the park for many more years, but eventually retirement came, and after several failed attempts to get a new buyer in, the park was forced to close.
I think everybody thought it would be there forever, which we thought so too.
And then the final nail in the coffin of Wichita's favorite place. Vandals, thieves, and arsonists started tearing the park apart.
They broke into the powerhouse, ripped out the big channel of wires, and we were done at that point.
With no electricity, there were no lights. The park goes dark, and the situation only gets worse.
Breaking news overnight, an investigation is underway into what caused a Joyland building to catch fire.
The fire destroys an iconic ride at the former Joyland amusement park.
It's just like a punch in the gut every time, you know. Police call you, fire department calls you, and you're just, man, you know, it's just sickening.
You just lose all sense of seems like you're lost. You know, all the buildings are leveled and burned up, and it's something else to walk around there and see all the debris.
But hope wasn't lost. The former owners started collecting items from the park before the thieves and arsonists destroyed these pieces of Wichita history.
There's people that preserve that stuff, thank goodness, for Wichita.
One of the biggest pieces to be collected was the old carousel. Being restored piece by piece, it will eventually land at a new park, Botanica Gardens in Wichita.
A piece of nostalgia restored, and the legacy of Joyland and those memories will be carried on here at Botanica.
Marty Miller has been working with teams of people for years to get the old Joyland carousel up and running and placed in its new home, and a fitting home at that. The layout for the new facility will be one of a kind, and just like when the carousel was at Joyland, Miller expects it to be a big attraction to the gardens.
It's actually growing into something else more than what it was, and it'll be a legacy from the past and a memory that can be carried on through the future.
Botanica isn't the only place you can see Joyland living on. You can also find these pieces of Wichita memorabilia, and of all places, an ice cream shop.
A lot of people ask us, they go, are these the actual signs from Joyland? Yes, they are.
Alex Latimer works at the Churn and Burn. It's an ice cream store. On the walls, there are original signs like Joyland Arcade the owners purchased, and on the menu, a Wichita favorite.
I have the Joyland dirt, and they give me some s'mores for Elena.
An ice cream concoction named after the amusement park.
So being local, we wanted to keep part of Joyland alive, so we bought all the signs and memorabilia and posted them around the store for everybody to come in and enjoy while they're getting ice cream and coffee.
All of this, all across the city of Wichita, to remember a once great amusement park.
The kids that missed Joyland missed a lot.
When we would drive down Hillside and see the sign, you'd start getting excited then because, oh, we're almost there. And then when the sign said closed, that was just like, you know, really heartbreaking to know there's no more Joyland.
Memories just go on and on and on.
I remember I'd always ride the scrambler with my grandpa, and he would always be on the outside, the one that squishes me. And there was one time he squished me so much that I didn't want to go on it again for a little while.
Memories of Joyland from the people who experienced it are slowly starting to disappear. This is why preserving this Wichita icon is taking a front seat. And you don't have to look far to see those in the Wichita community trying to save this piece of history. From the ice cream store to the community gardens, Joyland lives on.
That was part of the culture of Joyland, and so it's just something that is unique to Wichita, Kansas, and I guess people will always remember it, the ones that got to grow up and enjoy it.
For Positively Kansas, I'm Brian Ramsdale.
After Joyland recently sold, the former owners and many others rushed to get out all the memorable items that were still left behind. The property is expected to be cleared at some point for construction of new homes or businesses. He was a dedicated sheriff known for his courage and sometimes unorthodox efforts to fight crime. She was an up-and-coming singer-songwriter looking for her big break. So what did these two have in common? Jim Grayway shows us how an old song is bringing back fond memories.
Nothing brings back old memories like music. And in a life that's been full of music, few memories are as fond as this one is for Miley Coleridge.
Oh, Johnny Darr, how great thou art.
My gosh.
This is the first time she's heard this song since shortly after she wrote and recorded it in 1980.
That's been a million years ago.
Miley lost her copy of the record years ago and just recently found one on eBay. The song is called The Wichita Sheriff. It's all about a local lawman named Johnny Darr.
He was a colorful sheriff of Sedgwick County. Yeah, he was well known. And he was out to clean up Sedgwick County, period, of all crime.
Sheriff Darr became famous for his maverick, hands-on approach to crime fighting, like the time in 1976, when he risked his life to become a hostage in a standoff to help rescue a mother and her 4 children who were being held at gunpoint.
I remember sitting down and listening to the radio and hearing Johnny Darr this and Johnny Darr that and Johnny Darr this, and I thought, Johnny Darr, how great thou art.
Oh, Johnny Darr, how great thou art. He's out to spread his justice near and far.
Miley, who now goes by her real last name, Schaefer, says she wrote the song on a whim and then performed it at a local nightclub, not realizing that several Sedgwick County Sheriff's deputies were in the crowd.
And they just went wild. They loved it.
The reaction of the deputies inspired her to record the song at a local studio, backed up by a band called the Wichita Linemen.
If you're ever in a jam or in a pickle, just call John, he'll rush to your aid on his motorcycle.
Miley wasn't sure how Sheriff Darr would feel about the song.
I can't believe I didn't get arrested. Johnny thought it was funny.
The sheriff liked the song so much that he posed with Miley for some promotional photos.
When it first came out, he was kind of tickled about it.
Johnny Darr's kids have saved a lot of relics from their dad's sheriff days, including a copy of the record, though they hadn't heard it in years either.
Goodness. I already thought my dad was pretty cool and pretty famous in his own right around town, but the record was like, wow, this is the real stuff.
Darr served as sheriff from 1970 to 1986, and his kids say he was indeed the bigger-than-life lawman Miley sings about.
It's kind of a story tale song because a lot of things she names in there actually did happen.
Legend has it that Darr would go to great lengths to enforce the state's ban at that time on liquor by the drink.
If you're flying over Kansas on the airlines and the hostess offers a drink, you'd better decline, because no one ever knows when the man with the star is gonna pose as a stewardess, and then the whole damn plane will be fine.
Yeah, he did things by the book and probably sometimes not by the book.
The record became an instant hit on KFDI radio in 1980, and Miley says it became the most popular local novelty song of all time.
And it spurred me on to go ahead and pursue my music career, which I did. I was on the road for almost 23 years, and it all started with him and that little song.
She went on to travel the country and perform with such stars as Willie Nelson, Bonnie Raitt, and Garth Brooks. Meanwhile, this song inspired plans for a Hollywood movie. Walter Matthau was said to be the favorite to play Sheriff Dar. The film never happened, but Miley and the Dar kids will always have this song to remember the fabled sheriff who was a much-loved father to some and a ticket to success for a singer-songwriter looking for her big break. I'm Jim Grayway for Positively Kansas.
He's out to spread his justice near and far. Well, if we don't pay our taxes for old John, he'll have to rack us. But you know that we love you, Johnny Dog.
That is a scream. Oh my gosh.
I am so happy right now because I have a beautiful baby on my lap, and I just learned that there's an issue that I didn't even know was an issue. So Joan Goodritis has joined me today. She's from Bunny TNT to tell us about a problem that I didn't realize was a problem. People actually dump these rabbits.
Yes, it is. Rabbits are growing in popularity. We're talking domestic house rabbits. The problem is that people get these bunnies, usually for their kids, and they don't fully understand how to take care of them. And they see the cottontails hopping around and they think, oh, well, we can't keep the bunnies, so we'll just set it free. But they do not know how to survive in the wild. And usually setting them free is a death sentence. But right now, we have been seeing lots and lots of bunnies hopping around with no home.
So how can we help you? If we're out there and we love bunnies and you're having to take these animals in, you are adopting them.
Yes, we are adopting them out.
So that's one way to help.
Yeah. Contact us either through our website, which unfortunately is still in process of being put together, but you can reach us through there, bunnytnt.org, or we have a Facebook page, a Facebook group, Bunny TNT, and you can reach us from either of those ways. We will try to catch rabbits if we can. One of the things we do need is money. If people have large bunny cages that have a plastic bottom that they don't need anymore, we could always take in those.
Okay.
Because we're always in need of bigger and better cages. And also, Bunny TNT is looking for a storefront commercial property. If anyone knows where we could get a good deal on rent on someplace that will take in a rabbit rescue, please let us know. They are in our family residence, and that's basically where we've had our shelter for the past 12 years. But as you can see, it is wall-to-wall bunny. So obviously we need to expand because this problem ain't getting smaller.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for what you're doing. These animals are beautiful and they're sweet and they're kind, and I really appreciate you taking them in and trying to give them a good home. So thank you very much. Now to the great outdoors and the kinder and gentler side of Kansas wildlife. In this week's Kansas Wild Edge Report, Mike Blair shows us the first day of life for a white-tailed deer filled with both challenge and wonder.
June is fawn time in Kansas. Adult does, pregnant for 7 months, now shoo away their grown daughters to concentrate on new babies. Older does often have 2 or 3 fawns, but first-time mothers typically have just one. At birth, the fawn weighs about 5 pounds. Most are born now, but a few are dropped in May. In a world of lush new growth, it might seem the mother deer would carefully choose a birthing place to shield the fawn from danger. But that's not necessarily so. In fact, she may simply drop the fawn wherever she is at full term. And sometimes this is in surprising places, even close to human dwellings. This tiny newborn was dropped in a mowed prairie meadow between busy houses. The fawn was born at daybreak, and after a quick cleanup, the doe wandered away to leave it for 8 hours. New fawns have no scent, relying on camouflage spots and natural instinct to lie perfectly still and avoid detection. The doe leaves her new baby, sometimes traveling hundreds of yards away, so that her own scent doesn't attract attention to the helpless fawn. So it's on its own for much of its first day of life. This one, a buck, as evidenced by the black spots on its forehead which mark the future antler pedicles, was born in short grass. It rested easily through the cool morning hours. But as the day heated up, the fawn got hot and thirsty under direct sunlight. It panted through open mouth as it lay, finally needing to move. And it took its first awkward steps on its own, uncertain on its feet as it headed for nearby shade. For a short time, it disappeared into the heavy cover. But soon, wanting again to test its legs, it moved back into the open grass. And it lay there for another hour before returning to the cool thicket. The mother came back in late afternoon to feed her youngster and move it to better cover. At first, she seemed puzzled that the fawn was not where she left it, but she found it in the nearby shrubs. It joined her for the first of many reunions, getting a meal on its feet as Mama licked and cleaned her offspring. It followed as she made a 100-yard trek to a pasture fence that marked the Kansas wilds. There the pair rested and bonded in cedar shade for a short time. And then the mother led her baby into its new life as a beautiful wild deer that shares our prairie state. I'm Mike Blair for Positively Kansas.
Well, easily, the lady sitting next to me, could I spend the entire 5-minute interview just talking about her intro? Because Beth Bauer, you are good at everything. Not only are you one of my best friends, but you're a fantastic cook. You know wines as well as the sommelier. You are a great writer, wrote for the Eagle. I mean, she's done everything. And now you actually have put a documentary together and a cookbook. I love this. I think it's fantastic. So welcome to the show first.
Thank you very much, Sierra. I appreciate that.
One of the things I think is really neat is this documentary is on pies. So you kind of traveled the state and found the best pies. Talk about the experience of doing that.
Well, I haven't ever put anything together like this before, but it was pretty easy because everybody has a favorite place for pies. And the more I talked about it, the more people would tell me, here, why don't you go there? Here, why don't you try this? And so that made it kind of easy for me to pick places. And then it was a matter of getting the people there to, to say yes, and we would show up and film, and the customers loved it, because they were either part of it or watching it. And some of them, joined right in. So it was really a great experience.
You know, Beth, one of the things I thought was really neat in the documentary too is you got people to give up those pie recipes to share in a cookbook. A lot of people don't give up recipes. Was it hard to get people to give those up?
I think most of them were flattered, but sometimes it's kind of scary because chefs have been known to leave out an ingredient in a recipe. It's kind of hard to do that with a pie, I think, but you never know. I mean, you know, you make it your own, and I always say, make it once from the recipe and then make it your own.
I love that. Well, Beth, this has been on KPTS, the documentary, got an incredible response. I mean, people went crazy. How can somebody see it now if they didn't get to see it then, and how do they get the cookbook?
Well, we have the DVD and the cookbook, and they're both available if you go to kpts.org.
I think that's a great idea.
You know, and then just check it out, and it'll tell you what to do and how to get it.
So going through this, what one piece of advice would you give to somebody who's trying to make a pie? What would you tell them, make sure, blah? Is there one thing that will ruin it or make it good if you do or do not do it?
Follow the recipe. Baking is a science. This is why anybody could do it. No, I don't mean that. If you can read, you can cook was something I learned from my mother. That's not true.
It's not
true. If you can't follow the instructions, you can't cook. So, and it applies to baking as well, because baking is a science. And I would think that you just need, if you've never made a pie before, that's fun to just kind of like screw around with it. Go with a already made crust so that you don't, you know, have to worry about it. But if you're trying to make your own crust, you should read a little bit. Search that out on the internet.
I love it. Well, Beth, thank you.
Get my book.
Yes, there you go. Get the cookbook, and we told you how to do that. Beth, thank you so much. It was an excellent documentary.
Well, thank you so much, Sierra. I appreciate that.
Well, that's a wrap for this week. Send your story ideas to positivelykansas@kpts.org. I'm Sierra Scott. See you next time.
Program support provided by the F. Price Kosman Memorial Trust, Entrust Bank trustee, bringing you the Kansas Wild Edge segments on Positively Kansas.
Brought to you by Central Security Group, your experts in home automation, security, and peace of mind. View video on your smartphone and control your home's lights, locks, heating, cooling, and more. Security app compatible with Apple Watch and Amazon Echo.
The preceding program was brought to you by TZ Productions, supporting KPTS and the communities it serves in South Central Kansas. Great starts here on KPTS.
Support also comes from viewers like you. Thank you. For a free copy of this program, become a new member of KPTS for a $40 contribution. If you are already a member, just send $25 for shipping and handling. Be sure to include the program's name, date, and time.